637, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome on into Nashville's Morning News. Joan Jones, Johnny B, Dan Mandis here with Jonthan Fahey, who is going to join us from the Newsmaker Hotline. Jonthan, always great to have you on. And let's talk about, first of all, the Daniel Penny case out of New York. Big news yesterday, of course, after we got off the air, the jury deliberated for more than 24 hours across 5 days before acquitting Penny of criminally negligent homicide on Monday. They were previously deadlocked on the more serious charge of second-degree manslaughter. So I guess, number one, I don't know. Were you surprised at this verdict? I will be honest with you. I was a little surprised only because this is New York.
Yes, I was surprised, and especially after hearing they were deadlocked on Friday on the more serious charge, it just seemed like at least it made sense to me that they would come back guilty on the other charge, or at least a hung jury on the other charge, because you would think if you're deadlocked on this, there were people that thought he should have been convicted of the serious charge, or at least a single person, who knows. So it is quite interesting. And the other thing I thought was interesting about it was they weren't out very long on Monday, so it's whoever was on the convict side from Friday, whoever and how many they were, seemed to quickly come around to the not guilty side. So maybe they thought about it over the weekend, or maybe it was just one holdout. We don't really know, but yeah, I was surprised, and I felt like New Yorkers, they want to be seen, don't want to be accused of being racist. So I think there was a lot of these racial undertones and actually overtones when you saw afterwards that, so they would not want to be perceived as racist, so they might convict them just for peace in the city and for their own sort of, social justice credit scores, being maintained. So, but I was surprised they did do the right thing. So I shouldn't be dumping on them too much. They came to the right conclusion, and I think that's a very good thing.
What was interesting, so they were deadlocked on the more serious charge of second-degree manslaughter. The judge comes back and he says, all right, well, so obviously you're not going to be able to, come to an agreement on second-degree manslaughter. But then the judge said, forget about that. Focus on criminally negligent homicide. Now, is that common where the judge will just say, all right, you know what? You can't get him on the more serious charge. Focus on this lesser charge. I mean, I've seen some people that are saying that the judge was out of bounds on that, but this is New York we're talking about.
Yeah, I can't think of a situation where I saw something like that happen, that they just sort of just dumped a charge while they hadn't come to a verdict, or a judge didn't declare a mistrial, which is, if they say they're hopelessly deadlocked, they can declare a mistrial on the count they're deadlocked on, which would be, saying, giving them an opportunity to retry it. So I think it is unusual, but it is sort of unusual just sort of to have it broken out that way, because, I would have cases, sometimes they would have, the jury would come back and say, we have a verdict on count one, we're deadlocked on counts two, those types of things might occur, and typically the judge will take the verdict on maybe what they have, and then the prosecution or government or however you describe them, would then dismiss the other counts or things like that if it's a conviction. So, but it does seem a little unusual, and ultimately I thought it was to Penny's detriment doing that, but apparently not.
One of the things that I find interesting, first of all, yeah, you mentioned without mentioning it, what happened after the verdict was read.
Just like everybody else seeks justice on their own, just like everybody else has vigilantes, we need some black vigilantes.
That's right.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
Right.
So that is, of course, Hawk Newsom, and I guess his whole gig is finding microphones and just yelling. Here's the deal. There were 2 black folks on that jury. And so there were 7 whites, 2 blacks, 1 Filipino, 1 Middle Easterner, and 1 Hispanic. And the jury was unanimous. And so when old Hawk Newsom there, the BLM, the guy that's in charge of BLM, I guess, in New York, goes off and says those things, nobody has anything to say about the 2 black people on the jury, it would appear.
Right, yeah, they give the impression, and the media is always happy to go along with these false impressions on these cases, right? Because they don't explicitly say it was an all-white jury, but they want people to sort of believe that. So, yeah, it really is disgraceful. And to think this Black Lives Matter organization was this organization that all of these corporations and everyone in the government, all our politicians were bowing down to a few years ago is such a disgrace. And they've been inciting violence really the whole time. Who knows if the NFL will put something about Daniel Penny in their end zone this weekend, because it's just it's so embarrassing that this organization got any credibility from the beginning. And why isn't he being investigated for inciting violence, inciting riots, things like that? Because somebody is going to take him seriously, and there will be somebody attacked on a subway or somewhere else because of this verdict. And that's a really shameful thing, that it's like, New York and Alvin Bragg deserves 99% of all, the responsibility here for this horrible decision. And I was just incidentally just looking up the New York City crime stats yesterday, and just during the 2 years he's been in office, crime went up like 25% over the years before, and it's at the highest level since like '06, when crime was like out of control in the country. So it's not even like Alvin Bragg is tough on crime, and he was also tough on Daniel Penny. He's routinely, which I'm sure you've talked about, soft on all the other crimes. And then this and Donald Trump are the two that he, puts the most attention on. It's pretty amazing.
Jonthan, this is what Alan Dershowitz said after the verdict was read in the courtroom. Apparently this BLMer, Hawk Newsom, actually threatened Daniel Penny. Listen.
Newsom, in the courtroom, in front of people, he said the following, turning to Penny: "It's a small world, buddy." And several people in the audience in the courtroom gasped. That was at the very least a veiled threat of violence. If I'm Penny, I got to get myself protection at this point. He is threatening to kill and to choke and to strangle Penny. Why is there no investigation and prosecution of the head of the Black Lives Matter? There are guilty people here. The head of Black Lives Matter is guilty of incitement and of threats.
All right, so Alan Dershowitz seems to maybe indicate that a crime may have been committed. I don't know. What do you think? What do you say?
Yeah, I think arguably, an assault, there's, you always hear assault and battery. Well, assault is like the threat of violence. So you could argue that there was an assault against Daniel Penny, or, there may be some laws on the books, New York, for specifically threatening people. So, yeah, there's certainly something that should be looked into and investigated. And also, Alvin Bragg, again, he has some responsibility to get up there and say, the jury has spoken, we don't take, vengeance on other, he can say something and really try to, calm the situation down. But the sad thing is, he doesn't really want to. I mean, he's a prosecutor not to make the citizens safer, which, I just said how crime's gone through the roof. He's there just to enact this political agenda, getting Trump, enacting this racial agenda. Everything is racist. And it's been good for him. And a lot of Democrats have, it's been an easy road for them to, take to get political power, because everyone's always afraid when you suggest anything's racist, everyone backs down and is afraid to stand up for themselves. So it's really disgraceful the way this whole thing has gone down. And, something bad will happen because of this. And Alvin Bragg missed an opportunity to just calm things down. At least Eric Adams is, I think, saying a few things to try to calm things down. I think he indicated he sort of supported Daniel Penny, at least on one of the prior interviews. But, Alan Dershowitz is spot on, but they won't do anything, in my view.
One of the things I think is interesting, Jonthan, is that when I saw this come down, I thought, okay, so Daniel Penny has been found not guilty. And sort of slowly but surely, America seems to be getting back to normal, right? Like DEI is falling. Daniel Penny was found not guilty, and Donald Trump was elected president. So it seems to me like, I don't know, is the American people just getting really tired of the foolishness of the Democrat Party?
Yeah, I think they've just gone so over the top with this stuff. With, like you said, with the DEI, I mean, it's just shoved down people's throats to a point that they are just so sick of it. And we just got through ironically, it's like the Biden administration may be known for killing off DEI because everything they did seemed to be about DEI. And I think by any objective standards, his presidency was a total catastrophe. But I think by and large, people are tired of it. After 2020, when everyone was taking a knee and doing all this stuff to the BLM protesters and trying to show how woke they are and willingly letting their cities burn down, as in the case of Tim Walz. And it was just, I think people got so tired of it, tired of being silenced to speak up against it because they were afraid of being called names. And I think hopefully we've hit a tipping point that's like, let's stop this racial division, because ultimately nobody wins except a few of these politicians or the Al Sharptons that have made money out of it. But both sides, meaning every race loses on this, not just so I hope it ends, and I think people have always seen it. I think they've just been afraid to stand up to it.
One of the things I thought, you just mentioned Al Sharpton, and so you've done a lot of television analysis on Fox News, and I'm assuming others as well. And so one of the things that I thought was interesting, this was a story from earlier in the week, or last week, where Al Sharpton, MSNBC, they are now under fire because of this lay-down infomercial that Al Sharpton gave Kamala Harris. And now you've got a whole bunch of black churches that are out there, and they're demanding that Al Sharpton be punished or pulled off the air, because from a journalistic standpoint, you and I both know that that is an absolute breach of ethics, that where Kamala Harris, she and the campaign gave Al Sharpton, I think it was $500,000 for that interview. And it was a total infomercial. And so once that comes out, the black churches are saying, well, you betrayed us. And especially when it comes to, journalistic principles. And what do you think about that based on your experience at Fox News?
Yeah, like how do they keep him employed there? It's astonishing. But yeah, I've done a lot of interviews or do interviews on your show, and no one, I'm not, paying you, but also
I don't,
you don't even get I don't even get no one even gets the questions, and it's just so astonishing that because you've heard of these things where Biden was getting questions and things like that, and it's like the media is so bad. Like, I know everyone has such a low opinion of the media, but it really should be even lower, because the fact that it's even a subject of discussion that he would still work there after charging money to do a favorable interview for her, it just shows it speaks incredibly poorly about him, but no one has ever thought of him as to be somebody that upheld any sort of ethical standards. So that you would think MSNBC and the people that work with him would be like, this is so out of bounds, but they don't seem to particularly care about it.
Well,
which is the astonishing thing.
Yeah, and Al Sharpton, he didn't care. He got his $500,000, and you're right, this was a disgraceful act, but I don't believe that at this point in his life or career and race baiting, I just don't believe that Al Sharpton has any disgrace left. You know what I mean? He just doesn't care. And so for the American people, we know that MSNBC's ratings have gone down, and I think that is also part, Jonathan, of what I was talking about earlier, which is that DEI is over, Penny's innocent, and some other things, and it just seems like America is getting back to normal, and at some point MSNBC will go to the trash heap of failed political channels, television cable channels. So we'll have to see what happens. But Jonathan, we're out of time. Always great to have you on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.